All right. It's 5 of 5, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for being here. We are delighted to have you. My name is Enrique. I am the founder and CEO here at Paula Inc. I am joined by my colleague Lara Matallana, who is a marketing specialist here at Paula Inc. and also the founder of La Oficina, the organization that we're partnering with for this webinar. And I'm going to let her explain what the Oficina is in a minute. I don't want to steal her thunder. So the first thing I want to do is acknowledge everyone for being here at 5 p.m. Eastern time on a Tuesday. I know at this time, most of you are ready to go home. And so the fact that you made the time to be in the webinar means a lot to us. So we're going to make sure that it's worth your while. And also, we're going to make sure that we're done by 6 p.m. so you can be on your way and enjoy your evening. In terms of logistics, you probably realize that we're using Google Meet instead of Zoom, which is what most people are used to. So if you want to chat, if you want to say anything, there should be a chat icon on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And if you want to ask questions, there is another icon on the bottom right that looks like 3 kind of funky figures. You can ask questions there, and those can get upvoted. As you can see here, we invited you because we wanted to talk about operational excellence in the international students recruitment world. And while that's the focus of the presentation, and for good reason, I want to clarify that we're going to focus on the earlier stages of the recruitment process. I'm talking about marketing and sales, lead generation, lead classification or scoring, pipeline management, and then the concept of revenue operations as a way to streamline your operations across sales, marketing, and customer service teams so that you can get better results and increase revenue. So that's the preamble. So if you're in sales and you're in marketing, this will be all the more relevant to you. And it's all mostly operational. There is not going to be tactics about how to attract more students or anything like that. It's more about once you have demand, how do you manage that in an organized way so that you can make the best of every opportunity and keep things from falling through the cracks. So as means of an agenda, we're going to talk about the changes in immigration policy that happened over the last 2 years and the impact that that's having, the operational challenges that that's creating for companies in higher education and for the ESL industry, what's revenue operations and how can it help you, how to streamline your operations in alignment with the students' sales journey so that you're there and you're meeting students where they are. We're going to demo some solutions after we talk about that. And then we're going to tell you what no one will tell you if you embark in this journey of streamlining your operations so that you are more successful. And then we're going to have a Q&A if we have time at the end. I want to make sure that we have time because I really want to hear your questions if you have any. So let's start by telling you who we are. We're Paula. We're a Toronto-based marketing and technology agency. I am the founder and CEO. I am an international student myself, or I was 18 years ago. I came to Canada as an international student. I went to ESL school first, then I went to George Brown College where I studied technology, worked for many years, and 2.5 years ago, I decided to start this company. So I know well the process of, and I know it's changed, but I know the process of coming to Canada as an international student and just trying to make it here professionally. And the company focuses on revenue operations, as I mentioned before, which is basically helping marketing, sales, and customer service teams streamline their operations so that they can increase revenue. We also build websites and digital solutions, and the idea is to create great experiences or great digital solutions for clients. And we do branding, basically helping companies look good, whether it's online or in traditional marketing outlets. And now I'm going to hand the microphone to my friend Lara Matallana, who's going to tell you a little bit more about La Oficina.
So hi everyone. As Enrique told us, my name is Lara. I'm from Colombia. I also came as an international student. Right now, I'm on my second program at Seneca Polytechnic, and one of you guys, Daniel, was the one that helped me come here, basically to Canada. He's one of the basically like advisors of that agency. So basically, I And I spoke with Enrique about all of this. I spoke the fact that Canada has changed. Like it's completely different now. Like everything of the norms and the laws and everything is it's a bit just like a headache. So basically, we create this just for you to help like the students, just to make the process easier and better for you guys also, and that will also help by the end of the day to the students. So that's really good. So what's La Oficina? La Oficina is basically and community, you can say a community of Latin people here in Toronto. We want to expand it to other cities, but for now it's here in Toronto. And we're networking events. So we do networks and we connect people with opportunities. Because the fact that sometimes the process of just coming here in Canada and having an agency to take you like to the college or ESL school or whatever is sometimes incomplete. So we take that part of the job journey of a student or a potential like professional here in Canada, and we help them just maybe go into the professional basis basically. So yeah, that's what we are.
Thank you, Lara. So for those of you who haven't realized it, Lara is a powerhouse. She's very young and she started this organization. She works for a lot of people. She runs events. I cannot wait to see where she is in 10 years. And we're lucky to have her as part of the team. And I think Lorena
Thank you.
approves. Cool. So let's get into the environment we are in. Immigration policies changed in the last 2 years, and that has impacted your industries meaningfully. There is a new reality that we're dealing with. Just to mention some stats, study permit approval rates dropped from around 60% in 2023 to 54% in 2024, according to Apply Board. International enrollments have decreased by around 40% in 2024. And that represents a potential loss in revenue of about $1 billion for universities in Ontario alone, let alone all of Canada. And then the changes to the postgraduate work permits and spousal permits have made it really hard to qualify. And yeah, Lorena feels the pain. So basically, that's what happened. It means, in a way, for you guys, it means that there are fewer opportunities and more competition. It means that you need to qualify your opportunities better to make the best of every prospective, or to choose and identify the best prospective students to come to Canada. And in practical ways, this represents a revenue risk if these seats go unfilled. This means that budgets are shrinking at universities, and so you guys have to do more with less. And this means that operational bottlenecks or operational mistakes can now be very costly. Lost leads or seats mean lost tuition. And despite that, we are finding that a lot of institutions got caught off guard by these changes. If we've looked at systems, and there is a lot of scattered data in terms of how you collect information about students and move them through pipelines that are multiple spreadsheets. Things are coming in through web form, social DMs, emails, different systems, and this isn't all centralized. And there is a lot of manual and isolated processes, which is a bit dangerous because it's really hard to keep oversight. There is not a source of truth, like one place where all the data is, which is basically what allows you to modernize systems, to automate, because you need to be able to access data from all parts of the journey to be able to create proper automation. There is a lack of accountability in terms of who is responsible for what, because if you as a manager don't have clear visibility of every step and who is doing what, then how do you hold people accountable? And then reporting and analytics are a huge headache, because in order to create a report, you need to have access to all the data. And if you have to download in a spreadsheet here and do this manually and then cross-reference it with the other system, by the time the report is ready, it's irrelevant. And there is nothing like real-time reporting to be able to make decisions that way. So these are some of the more practical pains that we've seen institutions, educational institutions, or higher education institutions in Canada suffer through when it comes to this challenge. So how do you fix that? Sometimes people will throw money at a problem, although I know that's not really an option for a lot of these institutions right now, or you throw people. And the reality is doing that is not going to fix the problem, because we've seen more than enough companies or institutions with the technology, with the money in place, but it's still a mess because people are not being trained, because the technology is there and the resources are there, but the processes are not established. So even though the tools are there, people don't know what to do, and they end up creating their own processes. So doing that is not enough. There is a new emerging field called revenue operations, which is what we've been talking about, which is basically the process of aligning people, processes, and the technology and data that are involved with all the front office functions of a company. What are the front office functions? Sales, marketing, and customer service. So we believe that any potential overhaul of these functions at a company require a great degree of alignment between these three parts in order for things to work. If you think about people, there's lots of stakeholders in the recruitment journey for students. There is marketing, there is sales, there is admissions, there is student services, there is management, and they all play a role in making sure that the recruitment happens successfully, that you get the best leads. So everyone needs access, so they need to be aligned. If you think about your processes, you can have all the people and technology you want, but without clear, repeatable processes, you'll run into trouble. So think of the processes involved in the recruitment process. You have content creation, you have lead intake, you have the screening and qualification process, which is incredibly important right now for you guys. Then you have admissions, you have accommodations, you have visa approvals. There is so many processes involved in this. And then finally, the data and the technology, which are king. That's the glue that brings it all together. And if you think of all the systems involved, from email marketing to CRM to social to SEO to referrals to reporting tools, there is a lot that goes into place to make sure that this works cohesively. And if, as part of whatever solution you try to implement, or whatever of your approach, I should say, you're not aligned in them all, then opportunities will for sure be missed, and they're going to fall through the cracks. So that's from a philosophical, strategic perspective. Revenue operations foundations, which basically means the alignment of these three, is incredibly important if you take on this kind of overhauls or journeys or transformations. And there is a lot of organizations out there that are applying revenue operations, not necessarily in the international students recruitment business, or even just students recruitment, but in other industries, and they're seeing great results. According to the Boston Consulting Group here, they surveyed a bunch of companies, and companies that applied revenue operations as part of their transformation, the digital transformation. So 100 to 200% increase in digital marketing ROI. They saw a 20% increase in productivity, and a Salesforce study showed 15% improvement in operational efficiency when you applied RevOps. That study is 2 years old. I'm sure that number is higher by now. So I've given you a brief overview of what revenue operations is. And one of the things that we want to do is, okay, how do we map that to the sales journey when it comes to international students? So if you think about an international student, these are sort of like the stages that they go through, or in that you're trying to streamline for when you're dealing with them. So you try to attract students, which is the part where you generate interest. You're trying to engage students, which is establishing connections. For the first part is like the tools that you use for that. You're talking about content, you're talking about strategic partnerships, you're talking about student fairs, social media. That all lives in the attract stage. If when you move on to the engage stage, then that's when you're trying to establish that connection. That's where website inquiries come in, web form, social DMs, university visits, student fairs, referrals. That's all part of the engage part. And then there is the qualify section, which is basically how do you prioritize effectively, so that you are screening through students, you're trying to prioritize the best fit leads, And then that way you're making the best use of your time and your resources. And then there is admit and enroll, which is basically closing the deal, getting students through all the hurdles that come from admission and enrollment or traveling to another country. And then delight is how do you transform students into promoters? The journey doesn't end at admission. We believe that students continue to be prospects even after they join a program. And more important than that, they are referral sources. For almost every business, the best source of referrals of new business is your existing clients, and that's what students are once they're in a program. That's also the reason why this is a circle as opposed to a linear thing, because we think that once you enter this circle, the process doesn't stop. You continue to go through that, whether it is because you're going to be upsold, or maybe you're interested in another program, or because I want to keep you happy so that I get referrals. So those are sort of the stages of the student sales journey. Now, what are the stages that we are going to try to give you some tips for today and that we're going to solve for today? So those are these three: attract, engage, qualify. Essentially, what can I do to efficiently manage the initial awareness and inquiries from prospective students? That's one of the questions that we want to answer today. That's attract. Now, I want to clarify. We're going to focus more on the part of managing the leads that get generated, managing the interest that you create, not necessarily creating that interest, because that's not part of what we're talking about today. And I believe that a lot of you guys are very good at doing that already. Another question that we ask is, how do we build meaningful relationships? Or what tools can we use to build meaningful relationships? That's the engage part of the journey. And then lastly, and probably the most important, is how do we quickly identify the best fit students, and factoring in things like language proficiency, visa approval, likelihood, seamlessly handing them off to the admissions team with all the context once we've decided that this is a good lead for everybody. So those are the sections that we're going to give you some tips in terms of like how we can solve for today. Actually, not tips, but strategies, like what's required to do that well. And so what does that mean in practice? I've kept the conversation high level at a strategy level, but now I want to take it down to what are some of the specific tools, features that you will use or that you will hope to have to be able to apply this in practice. And just for those stages, we can think of 4 that high-level buckets. That is lead management, which is how we're going to try to get quality over quantity. There is pipeline management, which is once a lead has been qualified at an initial stage, we think this is a good prospect for the school based on a variety of criteria. That gets put into the admission pipeline, which is basically where the different stages that they go through until they are finally enrolled. There is reporting and analytics. Basically, you cannot improve what you cannot measure. So that's an incredibly important part of being able to do this. And then modular access, which sounds fancy, but it's basically not everybody needs to have access to all the information, but there are people that need to be involved at different stages of the journey. So you need a tool that will allow you to give, or a solution that allows you to give different access to different people based on what is it that they need to do to help continue to move these students through the pipelines. So how do we solve all of these problems? How do we get all of that happening? The key here is, and this is probably one of the biggest takeaways from this presentation, is that the one requirement that is inevitable is bringing all parts of the business, or at least data from all parts of the business, because you don't have to have one solution that does it all. You have one solution. You need one solution that can consume all the data from everywhere under one roof. And only when all your systems talk to each other, when you're able to leverage all the data in real time, that's when you can fuel fast and sustainable growth. And in this case, more successful recruitments and enrolled students. And typically the best way to do that is a unified CRM. So we are a HubSpot shop. We work in HubSpot, but this isn't a HubSpot sales pitch. The reality is that a lot of what I'm talking about can be done in not in almost any CRM, but in a variety of CRMs. So whether you use Soho, whether you use Salesforce at your company, there is a good chance that there is a way to be able to do this. And the main message here is to try to prioritize that level of integration and that alignment between people, processes, and technology for you to be able to get the results that you want. So now that you get the theory, I wanted to show you guys a little bit of what this looks like in action. And again, because we are a sales HubSpot shop, then we're going to show it to you in HubSpot, but this can likely be done in different CRMs. So what this is I wanted to talk about lead scoring. The reason I put it here first is because I really think that this can make a big difference for you guys. Essentially, the having the ability to identify in real time who are my low likelihood to get approved, medium likelihood to get approved, high likelihood to get approved in terms of being admitted, in terms of being approved by immigration. If you can get your systems to help you do that, I think that will make a huge difference, especially if you're a successful organization that has lots of leads and you're moving around, you're going to seminars, you're doing events, you have leads coming from different places. If you can get technology to help you with this, I know that will change your world. So what's the first step in being able to do that is you need to be able to integrate all your systems. There are technologies out there that will help you do that so that you can have all your social accounts, your web forms, your manual imports, your leads that come from third-party agencies. It is not difficult if you use one of the tools that I've talked about to be able to integrate them all into a single system. And then there is lead scoring. What's lead scoring? Lead scoring is basically your systems creating a score for each lead so that you know who to prioritize. And typically when it comes to lead scoring, there are two buckets. The first bucket is this the right fit? And that's basically based on who the student is, what country they come from, what their grades, their financial strength, their current location, whether they're already in Canada or they are in their country of origin, whether they intend to continue studying after graduation, because you know that's an insight regarding whether it's more likely or not for them to get a visa. You can literally create that as criteria for your score, and then the system will actually score your students accordingly. And then that's one half, if you will. And then the other half, when it comes to lead scoring, is about engagement. You can have a lead with the perfect fit, but if they're not engaging with your website, if they're not engaging with your content, if they're not engaging, they're not coming to your events, then you know, okay, it might be good, but they're clearly not as interested. So then that also impacts scores. So if you ever get into lead scoring, those are the two things you want to think about. And then it's just getting into the details of that. And I actually want to show you a little bit of what that looks like. Why not in real time? I'm speaking a lot faster than I thought I would. So we actually have time here to show you a few cool things. So this is a quick report that we put together based on that's basically tailored for your world. In this case, you can see kind of like what, imagine being a manager, and maybe some of you guys are at a higher education institution or an institution that is bringing international students. And then here you have the ability to see, okay, we have 46 leads or 46 prospective students with a low score in terms of their likelihood to get approved. You can see there is a medium score and a high score. And if we go into the details of that, then you're going to see who those students are and what the score is. And this is extremely valuable, guys, in terms of who to prioritize. If I'm you, I focus on the high ones. I make sure that they get through the pipelines, and then I move down the other options. So that's basically a little bit of lead scoring, and I kind of want to show you maybe even how this works in the background, at least in HubSpot. Basically, what you do here is you have in a world where you have in a world where you've already set things up so that everything is integrated, which is not that hard to do. Then now you have the ability to take all those pieces from your CRM and add them to your scoring table. So what country is this person coming from? That has a score. Brazil, we should have given Brazil a much larger score here. And then you can do it based on country. You can do it based on visa status. You can do it based on whether the person came to an in-person event, what event, or even attribution. They came in through Instagram, website, Facebook. You can even go as far as what ad they clicked on, or what post they liked, or what page they liked, or what form they converted on. And then you can also include things like how many pages have they visited. All of that becomes part of the score, which frankly at the beginning is always a little bit off, but after you fine tune it a little bit, then it becomes an incredibly powerful tool for people to use. So that is what we have on lead scoring. Then I now want to move on to pipeline management. Pipeline management comes in typically after you've determined that a lead is a good lead. Lead is before pipeline is for like the more serious students. You've screened them. You know that they are good prospects to be able to come to your institution, get approved. And so one thing that is crucial is to be able to manage that in an organized way. And typically the way to do that is you do it in a pipeline. There are three key things that I think come into play when it comes to pipeline, on top of what I saw of the benefits that you see here. If you're ever creating or managing pipelines because you're in a management position, or you're trying to figure out how you should do that, I'm going to give you 3 pointers for that. Number one, for a pipeline to be useful, for it to be adopted, for it to be to help, you need clear entry and exit criteria for each stage. Most pipelines fail, even though they are such a powerful tool, because no one is clear when does the student enter the qualify stage, and when do they exit the qualify stage? When do they enter the enrolled or the accepted stage? And because actually, now that I've read them, those seem pretty clear, but a lot of the times it's not easy for the system to know when to move somebody along. And I see that a lot of pipelines don't get adopted, even though they can be so powerful, because people are not clear about what those stages are. The second thing is automation. Nobody wants to be updating these things manually. You go through, you're working with a student and you're moving them down the journey, and you forget to update the pipeline, and then all of a sudden the pipeline is out of date. And that's because if it's not well implemented, there is no automation. And automation is what makes this work. In an ideal world, this would be updated. Students will be moved based on other things that get updated. Oh, we got payment. Then the system knows that you got payment and it moved them to another stage. Or there is a visa application process, and the people who are helping with that turn on a button or a field that says visa approved. The pipeline knows that, and it automatically updates. Some things will have to be updated by whoever is working with it on it manually, but when you always try to automate the most you can, otherwise they fail. And then another thing that makes pipelines not work is that a lot of people, especially if you're in sales or if you're in recruitment and you're trying to show that you're generating business, there is a bunch of wishful thinking happening in the pipeline. You get a lot of deals in there that have nothing to do, that are dead deals, that they shouldn't be there in the first place. And people don't clear them out because they want their pipeline to look full, even though the stuff that's there they're not really good prospects. So I want to show you really quickly also another element here of pipeline management, that I think you're gonna like, because the other thing that matters when it comes to managing pipelines is how useful it is, how useful the pipeline is when you're looking at it. If you look at this pipeline immediately, as you're looking at it, you kind of get a sense of how many people are in each stage and who those people are. In this case, Teresa Phillips applied for the Bachelor of Commerce program at your institution, whatever that institution might be. She's interested in the winter 2025 program, is from the Philippines. The first interaction we had with her was from Instagram. And so when you can actually have the ability to have a pipeline that gives you that level of information as you're trying to manage all your students, then that becomes a really useful, really powerful way to keep track and accountability over everything that's going on in terms of your recruitment process. So that's what we have to say on pipeline management. So the last piece, and this piece is really, really, I think, key for you guys, is reporting and analytics, and in particular, attribution reporting. Attribution reporting refers to what do we attribute this lead, this revenue to? What are the channels, whether it's social channels, whether it's an in-person, the person comes from an in-person event, whether it's the website, whether it's a referral. That is extremely important to know when it comes to optimizing your recruitment efforts, because if something is working, you want to double down on whatever that is. And if something is not, then you want to probably either fix it or minimize your investment in that. So that's what attribution reporting is about. And we think is a key part of what higher education institutions and ESL institutions need to be able to implement in order to be able to streamline their process, and in order to be able to identify where the best opportunities are so that they can double down on them. And I'm also going to show you a little bit of what that looks like at a very high level in HubSpot. One quick second. So this reporting that I'm showing you here goes well beyond pipeline, beyond attribution. So here is the report that I showed you before. Here on the right is essentially the same thing that I showed before in terms of the actual pipeline, but this filters the people who are not enrolled yet. So this gives you a sense of the people who are actually prospects still because they haven't enrolled. And here is another report in student recruitment. And this is actually what is attribution reporting. This report gives you details in terms of how many students came in through Instagram, through Facebook, through the website, through in-person events, through webinars, through third-party agencies, through others. And if you have this implemented appropriately, then you can literally go into it and then see what ad, what post, what link they came in through. So you get a great level of detail that allows you to really know what's working and what's not working. Not only as it relates to lead conversions, because a lot of people make the mistake in attribution reporting that it's like, oh, that ad generated 20 leads. But if you don't follow the full journey, how many of those leads actually became clients versus just converting in a web form? So we've seen many times that seemingly successful campaigns, because they had a lot of conversions on the front end, don't generate a lot of business. But then you have another campaign that only generated 10 conversions, but then 5 of those people become clients. And so which one is working better? In my opinion, the one that generates revenue works better. So those are the kind of things that the kind of conclusions that you can come to when you actually follow the entire journey versus having people work on different phases and not having anything integrated. This is another interesting report that you could have based on visa status. We have, 24 students that applied, 50 got approved, 12 got rejected, and you can layer countries on top, giving you a sense of the percentage of approval per country. And so that becomes really interesting because now you know what countries are getting approved. And this is a similar thing in terms of what are the programs that people are interested in or that our prospects are interested in. And then on top of that, you're layering the sources. So now you know, oh, maybe for whatever reason, this particular ad generated a lot of interest for this program in particular. And this is another report on students by country. So that is a little bit of what's possible, which is basically what we're trying to get out to you. If you implement a good strategy of revenue operations and of marketing automations and sales and integration. We're getting to the end here. So this is a slide on security. It's crucial. I don't need to go over it. Any system that we present here is going to be incredibly secure, especially if you're right now using Google Sheets or you're using isolated systems and passwords are being shared. Privacy is incredibly important when it comes to students. No one wants to be, or any kind of client, no one wants to be embarrassed by a privacy breach. So that is something that needs to be kept in mind, and is yet another reason why revamping operations and making them more robust is important. And then to conclude, before we take any questions, if there are any, is that if you're considering stepping up your revenue operations, there are some tips that we have for you. These are the things that you shouldn't fall for if you decide to take on or embark on a journey of streamlining your marketing and sales operations. Some people might tell you that it's plug and play. That is wrong. Proper RevOps requires planning and alignment of people, processes, and data. It is entirely possible that some things are plug and play from a technology perspective, but for you to make it work in alignment with your particular set of needs, it requires some planning. You can do it yourself. We don't believe that. We believe a lot of people try and then they fail. And the reason is there is a lot of nuance and complexities involved in having a proper implementation of something like this. So it should be implemented by experts, whether that's somebody you hire or internally or externally. We think it's important. And then you need to gut your existing systems. You don't need to get rid of anything you have right now a lot of the times, especially if you have a good foundation. And we're big proponents of starting small and then growing from there. And we've seen many cases where we come in and we integrate with what people have. So you don't always have to redo the whole thing. And then RevOps works for everyone. I guess you can call a well-organized spreadsheet some type of RevOps, and from that perspective, it works for everyone. But RevOps is really intended for people who have strong demand. They have a lot of leads, they have people coming to them, and they need to stay organized. Their problem is that things are falling through the cracks, that they're missing opportunities, and they don't even realize it sometimes. So that's who RevOps works best for. And it's not the case, that isn't always the case for everyone. I always say you can have a jet, but if you don't have any passengers, then what's the point of that? So that's true when it comes to this. That actually, I think, is the very last slide from the presentation. And now I would just love to know if anybody has any questions, and you can either unmute yourself and ask them, or you can put them in the chat.
I will just add on something that I got during the basically like the webinar and the presentation, is that something that is really important for you guys to know is that, especially if you have your own company itself, like, I don't know, we study, for example, it's small agency and all of that. So if you have your small agency, you need to know where to put your budget or your resources correctly. So sometimes, yeah, we know social media is very good. Social media will get you leads and everything, but how worth it is? Like, do you know where to put it actually? Do you know if it's gonna work? Sometimes a lot of marketers or marketing and advertising people will tell you, no, this is just like try and try and try and let's see what works. That things are not like that. You can actually track everything and you can see how things could work. So having a tool like this will help you actually know and don't micromanage a lot. So you have it. You can just look at it in the actual CRM. So when you have everything connected, you won't miss anything. So I think that's a really good thing that you have to get in mind, just because, yeah, it's really important to have those resources, like, just in the correct place, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of examples of that I've heard of, like somebody's managing the social accounts and they are making sure that the leads are being acquired and moved to admission if they're good leads. But, how does a manager know that that's happening well, correctly, if they don't have access to that? Well, these tools connect your Instagram messages to the CRM and everything is going directly into the contact. So now you don't have to worry about that because all you have to do is log into the CRM and see it there. So yeah, there's a number of aspects of that the integration solves for that are critical.
Oh, another thing, I know a lot of you guys go to actual like events and you collect leads and everything. Something that is really important is to just follow up those leads. These tools help you to follow up with those. Another thing is also, sometimes we don't need an extra person just to manage everything. We just need a good tool, like having your resources spending in a good tool will solve you from having another paycheck, another person to pay, I don't know, like health and a lot of things that you have to pay. So having like, yeah, a service that can do it all, I think it's really worth it. So yeah.
Okay, I love it. So it doesn't sound like there is a lot of questions from the audience here. So I don't want to take any more of your time. I know it's Tuesday, 5:45 p.m. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. I hope you learned something and you're taking something away. And if you don't have any questions, have a wonderful day.
Thank you for the presentation, Enrique and Lara.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.